Hello, YouTubers. Joe of Joe and Paul here on 340 on March the 5th, Tuesday. Perhaps Paul will join us later, perhaps not. It looks like he's getting ready to. That's good. We've had a fairly benign day here. You know, Paul's been off today. And, well, obviously I've been off today because I'm retired. Gotta get, there we go, that's better. We sort of went our, did our own little thing there from, well, Paul got up around, what, 9:39, about 9. And, of course, I got up my usual, like, 3:30, nonsense. And so, doing our thing. I mean, I read the WSJ online, and then I, of course, did email and watched, the space station, and there's a couple of other things I got. I tried to see if the British Parliament was doing anything. Well, they were, but not anything that really floated my boat today. Tomorrow at noon, well, noon their time, which would be 7 o'clock in the morning our time, is Prime Minister's question time, and I urge everybody to look into that from time to time because it is, well, first of all, it's wonderful theater, political theater, or theater just in and of itself.
It's fun as shit.
Well, and it's such a contrast to the way our U.S. Congress does stuff. I mean, it's, now I wouldn't want to live under an elected dictatorship like the British system really works out to be. But, I mean, there's no, they say they have an independent judiciary, but they don't. Still, it's fun to watch that. Well, they won anything today. So, looked at the Sault Ste. Marie locks and had to watch some weather. Well, so that was fine. So then I got this email out of the blue, and it was from the Wall Street Journal, and it said, so-and-so has left a reply to one of your comments. Well, sometimes I get into a pounding the keyboard mode in the commentary, and sometimes I don't. Yesterday I was particularly busy, so I thought, oh, well, that's something from yesterday. It turned out it was something from, this guy was replying to something I had written 135 days ago. Now, 135 days ago, I'd only had my computer for about maybe 2 weeks, if that long. And it was an article in the Wall Street Journal that regarded this fellow, his first name was Taylor. Well, it doesn't matter what his last name was, I guess, anymore. Nowadays, it's like Afghanistan guys that only have one name. Taylor. University of Texas, Austin. Well, he had gone to college and, of course, felt very free and liberated. And that's good because that's the way I felt. I might one day learn how to put up the picture of, my first, day getting ready to go into the dorm. And when I was 17 and a half, and when I showed it to my son, he said, "That's the happiest I've ever seen you." And I said, "That's the happiest I ever had been."
I have my own place.
Yeah, I can take a hot shower, first of all, have a shower, period, and a hot shower as long as I want. We lived in a very cramped household. Well, anyway, that's neither here nor there for this tale. So anyway, this guy says, see, I had remarked, and this thing was about Facebook, basically. The Facebook sort of accidentally outed them, or some guy, who ran their choir group, which was, now I'm sure maybe this is going to get flagged as inappropriate, or but the group itself at University of Texas called itself the Queer Chorus, and the Wall Street Journal used that terminology in its own article. So don't hang that one on me. Plus I'm gay, so I guess I can use the word, huh? So I said, I wrote, being 60 years old and recently having acquired my first computer and internet access and experience, I thought I'd sign up for Facebook, which I did. The process was bafflingly confusing. I kept getting caught up in a cyclical, repetitious series of processes, which I concluded I did not really understand where I stood with any of Face Things criteria. So I did what any parent would do. I asked my 38-year-old son to get me off it, which he did, and so I said I had sympathy for the fellow named Taylor, and it was far easier to lead a life of deep covers, living the life of a deep cover spy and selectively out yourself in the days before social networking, said he, interacting with one of the prime competing social networks to Face Thing, and announcing that he's gay. Well, not really announcing he's gay. It's part of the ongoing, exchange of ideas. I mean, it's not like I get on here and say, "Hey, I'm gay." So this guy, excuse me, says, LOL. Now, this is not the way to my heart to use these abbreviations, guys. This is not the way to my heart. First of all, I don't know what 95% of them mean. And if you have something to say, just say it.
What's LOL?
Laugh out loud. But if you're too lazy to express your thoughts, then I don't want to hear them necessarily. Well, anyway, so he says, LOL, you are a deep cover spy. LOL, I guess it was so humorous he felt the need to just chuckle twice. You should have been a comedian. Well, I don't know about that, but so I said, Mr. Heaven, my heavens, Mr. This is quite the visitation from the past. I'm a bit more adept with the device, as I call it, after having been extensively beguiled, as the serpent did Eve. The serpent beguiled me. I love it. An excuse. Being extensively beguiled by many hours a day, clicking and seeing more of the virtual world than I had ever dreamed of, and with which I am clearly not fully sated. Witness, vide this. But more seriously, living a continuous lie is ultimately very soul deadening and very soul emptying until one reaches a point when one realizes that there is very little of you that is left. And if it is not recognizable even to yourself. So, all you guys in the closet, beware.
Somebody's knocking on the door.
Well, maybe they're slipping a note under the door. So then, and this was kind of what went back and forth, and so then he says, well, actually, this is pretty much contiguous. Then he says he used to post more often and so forth. Says he holds more staid views on the matter. Okay. I don't want to know, and I could not care less. Gays keep it all to themselves. Issues of sexuality should be kept behind closed doors. Well, I don't know if it's behind closed doors, but more nuanced of explanations of that anon. I think gays should have partnership rights, not marital rights. Another LOL. Then he talked about how you know, the people who were unintentionally outed on Facebook weren't living a lie. I mean, they had joined this group with an obvious name. I understand your position in the matter, though. Americans seem to think it's okay to ask about a person's sexuality. Well, I don't know. I've never found that to be the case. I mean, I've met any, I've, I've probably met upwards of almost 200,000 people in my life, and nobody's ever overtly asked me, "Are you gay?" Well, my mother did. I made her do that. I, I backed her into the wall in a corner on that one. But that's the only one that's ever asked me that overtly. Um, I find it disgusting and it's not okay to ask someone how much money they have in the bank or the length or the radius of their sexual organs. And, anyway, so, all right. So I said to him, I said, and here I'm going to be very interesting. I'm going to be very interested to watch Paul's response to this one, because I offered to let him read this, but he didn't want to read it. I am pretty much in congruence with your attitude. My associate of 32 and a half years and I have no desire to get married or even civilly partnered. If the tax code did not distinguish between individuals and various categories of couples, I do not think this would be such a big issue. And having worked in and around hospitals for 19 years between 1972 and 1971 or 1991, I can say I never saw any long-term companion denied access to their friend who was a patient. Surviving families and inheritance issues can be always dealt with by a will, as well as by setting up various joint tenants with right of survivorship accounts and property titles. Clearly, over time, as people interact with each other, people will figure things out as mutual knowledge grows, and casual conversation lets things slip. Oh, where were you, 2 weeks ago? Well, I went off on this little trip with my da-da-da, or with so-and-so and so-and-so. And enough people, people who aren't congenitally dim, figure it out. Again, the idea is not to live a lie. The idea is also not to live an explosion, however true it may be. David Sedaris, who if you haven't read any of his stuff, I urge everybody to read some of his stuff. He's a gay fellow that writes books, and I guess from time to time he's on NPR. Not one of my favorite outlets, but NPR. He said about, in regards to the rainbow flag, says, I must have been out of the country when they voted on the rainbow flag, and then there was something in the Wall Street Journal yesterday, in along a similar issue. Well, it's the whole phrase, the much vaunted phrase that seems to roll off a number of people's lips on YouTube, and that's fine. That's fine. If that's the way they think and talk, that's fine. The LGBT community. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, there's 4 different categories of folks in that, and I don't think they constitute community. Not in the slightest. Now, I've met some lesbians that there's some certain degree of solidarity there, but not necessarily often. I frankly don't think there's such thing as bisexual.
You either are or not.
Yeah, one or the other. And and as far as transgendered, yes, I'm sure there's a number of people out there that really feel they're trapped in the different sex's body, or their mind's trapped in a different sex's body or the wrong sex's body. I mean, I'm certain there are. I mean, I've met some of them. My professional interaction with that, when I was involved in medical school and surgery and anesthesia, and was those folks who had adrenogenital syndrome, and our local children's hospital here had a number of these folks, and I was involved in a number, care of a number of these folks, and these folks that are born early, they're born with very ambiguous genitalia. They don't know. And this was in the days before definitive genotyping, phenotyping. Although that wasn't all that early. That was all that before that. And there's all that decision about how do you raise a kid, and do you do operations to make the phenotype express the genotype. No, that's a tough problem. That's a tough problem. I'm going to tell you though, right now, there's no commonality of interest in that with gay men. You might say there is, but there's not. So there's no community. So I don't live in that town, guys. I just do not live in that town. So, and then we talk about, well, if they sign on to the, chorus. That's very obvious. I said if I'd wished to be married, I would have stayed married to my ex-wife. Oh, and here we get to the other point the man raised. I feel no need to be physically demonstrative to my associate in public, nor he to me. I don't like to see straight folks engage in that behavior. No, I don't. Don't go out there, carrying on. That's like all these airport scenes, welcome them home from, just settle down, acknowledge each other's presence, and then go really do all the other stuff, somewhere more or less out of sight. And I'm more than certain that even the most tolerant of straight folks do not want to see us do it. Okay. Now, he clearly, after, he had sent the previous message about, his attitude, it's sort of like, it was like 6 minutes after that. But see, I was busy typing my response, so I didn't realize that he had, shot something else in while I was typing my response. It's very much like the old joke about two guys and a woman on a desert island.
Not that one.
Oh, it's a classic joke. No, I'm going to keep it clean. It's YouTube after all. So two guys and a woman, washed up on this desert island, and the story is that there's a long, it's like any joke. You have like 3 or 4 things, and then they did this, and then they did this, and then they did this, and then they did that, and it revolves around, after a certain amount of time, they decided, they were going to have more intimate interaction with each other, the men with the women. Well, you don't know that. You don't know that because that's the point of the joke. So after a while, she gets ashamed of what she's doing, so she kills herself. And then there's some more back and forthing and to and froing in the joke, and then the line is, well, after 2 weeks, they got ashamed of what they were doing, so they buried it. Well, I mean, you don't think it's going to be a joke about necrophilia. You think it's going to be a joke about, 2 guys who were straight, then turning to each other to be sexual. Well, so anyway, it's like he says, I think I goofed up in this connection request. So it's similar. It's not obviously similar, but it's similar. I was just browsing. I dislike Facebook immensely. So I thought maybe he was writing an article or researching something, or how did he happen? I mean, it's 4.5 months back, guys. Come on. So he wants. Well, then he says he hopes Facebook crashes and burns, and but then he does raise the point about family members say you got to use Facebook or else. I mean, you'll just never hear from us again if you don't use Facebook. And
like what Kid's sister says.
Well,
if you want to talk to any of us, you just flip over on the Facebook, and you just type in our name, and you say, hello, how are you doing today? Anything new? And I'm like, no way, dude. You want to talk to me? We're going to do it email style. Stay the hell away from Facebook.
It's like,
because Facebook, all you hear
Email
about
style.
from the media
do it
is
email
how
style.
it has caused a lot of problems. There was one kid who got in such a freaking financial problem from Facebook. It wasn't funny. Like, she was on Facebook. She talked to one of her friends. Said she would love more than anything to have so much monies that she could pay off all of her school debts. Well, somehow it suddenly showed up in her freaking bank account.
Was she a Nigerian princess?
No.
Oh.
She was an American.
Oh.
She was down at a university here in the United States.
Well, yeah.
And she and her father about shit their pants.
Well, we don't need to
because
say
then they had to pay all that back.
Defecated their pants. We're trying to be, compatible with standards.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, I said to this fellow after his, I bear Mr. Zuckerberg no ill will, but he certainly could have designed his creature to be somewhat more user-controlled in a more obvious and less exploitive way than it appears to be. Oh, and then I do address this point about older folks, sort of basically being threatened with excommunication from society if they don't use Facebook. I hear amusing and somewhat terrifying accounts of folks my age encounters with the face thing and post-service conversation at church. And one of the common laments runs, my son or daughter or sister or mother or father. And some of these folks, when they're telling me this, are like, 70. Said that all I had to do to find out what they were doing was to go to face thing, and too bad for me if I won't do it. Well, all right. Now, I've not heard back from this guy, and I have a feeling maybe this whole exchange has stopped, and that's fine. It's very interesting. I mean, it's interesting to revisit some of this stuff from time to time. Now, today, Paul and I had some, distressing news. A fellow that we had known, I have known this guy from probably like 73, 74 on, and I met him when he was living with another friend of mine. Well, soon to be friend, but basically these were both friends of my ex-wife, and I met this fellow who's become very, very ill then. Over the years, Paul and I interacted with him, and then, he left the first guy and then took up with another fellow who's still with him. They're still together. And this fellow has pancreatic cancer, as it turns out. And he's now getting the chemotherapy. This is the second course, and I guess he's so weak he can't talk on the phone. And of course, the fellow was very distressed. So another mutual friend asked me to, get him put on the prayer list at our church, which I duly did since I'm sort of coordinating that. And then this friend emails me back, say thank you, be discreet. Here I'm on YouTube being discreet. I haven't said any names. I don't think anybody's going to figure out what's going on. And then some other people closely connected with these people. I mean, also having just these disastrous circumstances befalling them here recently. So there we are. Paul seems to have his head truncated there. But I think we've probably covered most of this. Oh, wait a minute. No.
It just amazes me as to everything always happens to everybody all at the same time.
Well, or in threes, and
threes and fours.
Well, well, perhaps fours even. But there's an earlier video on my channel that addresses the idea of threes when people are,
And we're not talking three ways.
See, we're talking. No.
I know, I'm trying to stay nice.
Well, I mean that can be nice. That indeed can be nice. Now, not necessarily as a habit. I mean, it's not something that you
do daily.
Well, no. But when you're considerably younger, it's always interesting to sort of say, oh well, I've had a. Anyway, no. I mean, this is not that sort of thing. This is people dying in groups of three, and well, look that one up. It's there. So I think anything else, Paul?
No.
He may make something on his channel. That's the Paul Bennett channel. So he may make something on his channel. He hasn't done it for a while, but he was talking about doing it yesterday. So perhaps
I was saying yesterday that because also on my channel it says Joe and Paul, and I was thinking of doing a different.
Well, you can edit that. You can change that.
On my machine, I think it should be Paul and Joe, not Joe and Paul.
Well, you can set it up that way.
On Joe's machine, it can, we'll keep Joe and Paul. So just so we can clarify, on whose machine we're on.
As my son said, there's nothing you can do on this machine that can't be undone. I've always let that sort of be a lodestar and guide to me when I interact with, as I call it, the device. So now I'm going to turn off the device.
We're going to give it a shot.
I'm going to turn off the device. Yes, we may be on the other entity here. So, adios and bye-bye, YouTubers. All right.
Good night. Love you.